Josh White, and I've decided to call this video podcast the Ignore the State Report, the ITS report for short. Today I have just two news stories for you. One is, three news stories. One is from RT. It's in regards to Putin talking about the Syrian chemical attacks. He claims that they're the rebels' provocation and hope for intervention. To quote, when asked if they would help Syria, to quote, Putin said, "Will we help Syria? We will, and we are already helping. We send arms, we cooperate in the economic sphere. We hope to expand our cooperation in the humanitarian sphere, which includes sending humanitarian aid to support those people, the civilians who have found themselves in a very dire situation." This is one of those things that I don't think Washington is considering when it comes to Syria. Putin is essentially saying, even if we don't respond militarily, we're going to keep sending weapons, and you're going to have to fight well-armed Syrians if you guys decide to invade. He also said, small countries in the modern world feel increasingly vulnerable and insecure. One starts getting the impression that a more powerful country can, at any time and at its own discretion, use force against them. He was citing an earlier statement made by the South African president. This is one of those things that it's kind of shocking to hear come from an ex-KGB officer. And we all know the Soviet Union used to intervene all the time in other countries. But this goes to show you that the rest of the world knows what's going on, and they're afraid of the United States. This isn't a game to them. This isn't national interest to them. This is real. This is war. Another story, Pope Francis was talking to world leaders, and he said to the leaders present, to each and every one, I make a heartfelt appeal for them to help find ways to overcome the conflicting positions and to lay aside the futile pursuit of a military solution. So we have the Vatican is actually coming out and saying, maybe you guys shouldn't attack these people. They're already suffering, and we should really let this country figure out its own stuff. Or at the very most, approach this from a diplomatic point of view. So again, we have this unfolding Syria drama, and we can see that the world is not with us. Well, not with Obama, and certainly not with the senators and representatives who would have us intervene. This is an important thing to recognize. Another report from NPR, apparently also in the Washington Post and in The Guardian, it's been revealed by Edward Snowden that the NSA has backdoor access to pretty much all of the corporate encryption stuff that many of us use, including our banks. One of the more interesting finds, says NPR, is that the NSA spent $250 million a year to engage the, quote, the U.S. and foreign IT industries to covertly influence and or overtly leverage their commercial products' designs to make them exploitable. That's according to the Washington Times. Basically, this shows that all of our efforts to keep stuff private have been thwarted. That doesn't mean we should stop using encryption. In fact, I encourage everyone to use encryption and use every single keyword you can find to make the NSA sit up and take notice. The more we can waste their resources in reading our inconsequential bullshit emails, the better. We can get NSA agents reading about our birthday invitations and our shopping lists and all of that stuff, then it's possible they might be forced to ignore us simply because there's too much information for them to focus on. I use a couple of different apps on my phone. Red Phone, which is a encrypted calling app, which basically masks anything except for the fact that you used Red Phone to make a call. It's available for free on the Play Store. I also use Text Secure, which is another one where as long as you and the person you're talking to are using these apps, it masks who you're talking to, just that you're using the app to talk to someone. Again, if the NSA has these backdoors built in, they're probably still able to read your stuff, but it's going to take them a little more work. And we should definitely be using all of that to leverage ourselves against the state. This isn't really a time to be focusing on the fact that I have no harm, I must hide. The fact is, you shouldn't have to hide anything. You shouldn't be reading your stuff anyway. You have a basic human right to privacy. Well, that's the news I had for today. I did want to cover a couple of things outside of that. One of them, I recently watched an interview by Mike Shanklins. He was talking to Daniel Rothschild about the difference between civil and criminal law, and they were discussing how law would work in an anarchist community. And they decided that criminal law wouldn't be functional, which I completely agree with, because in criminal law, the injured party is the state, and the state does not exist. It's an imaginary construct that they've tricked us all into believing and following. However, the issue came up with, how do you then pursue murder or rape or these things that are quite obviously criminal actions? And it got me thinking, there's actually historical precedent for this. Old Norse culture and old Anglo-Saxon culture had a concept called vergild. And vergild was essentially placing a monetary value on human life, suffering, and property. And if you injured or killed someone, you had to pay the victim or the victim's family a set amount of money to make up for that wrong. And this would be that can maybe work as far as justice in an anarchist society is concerned. I think it's vital that we not only look forward and use our imaginations to come up with solutions for these problems, but also to look in the historical record and find what we may have missed and what humans have already done that would fit into your anarchist philosophy, whether you're an anarcho-syndicalist or an anarcho-capitalist or a primitivist or whatever. So Weregild is just one of the ways that we could solve this problem of, well, how do we punish a murderer? How do we punish a rapist? Setting that value there so that if someone is killed, whether through murder or through negligence or in a car accident, it makes sure the victim or the victim's family are the direct recipient of any compensation that is due them. Like I said, I think that's just a fantastic possibility that could be explored. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I wanted to talk about the concept of the non-aggression principle, and there's a lot of debate even within anarcho-capitalism, which pretty much strictly applies the NAP, but also among the other anarchist schools of thought, that it may not be a viable or realistic solution. For those that don't know, the non-aggression principle basically states that all forms of initiatory aggression are wrong, then the only form of legitimate aggression is in response to someone aggressing against you. I've yet to hear a convincing argument against the non-aggression principle, but I did want to address the fact that some people seem to apply the non-aggression principle and the concepts of nonviolence in an overarching methodology. I don't think that's the right word, but you get what I mean. And while the non-aggression principle is important and we do want to not aggress against non-violent people, we have to recognize that sometimes the right thing to do is to stop someone before they can commit violence. We also have to recognize that non-violence is limited in its scope. I'm all about non-violence. You shouldn't be out hurting people. You shouldn't go out and, shoot tax collectors. It's not okay. Your aggressive reaction to aggression needs to be proportional. And so I think it's important that we keep in mind that proportional reaction and apply it through our day-to-day lives and our day-to-day situations, where it's appropriate to stop you from hurting another person, and for you to stop me from hurting another person. It may not necessarily be okay for you to kill me when I'm trying to hurt someone else. You should show restraint. Tomorrow, I'm going to head over to the Saturday market here in Eugene. I'm going to see if I can interview a couple of people about Chelsea Manning and Syria, and see what the people here in the Willamette Valley think about those two things. I also want to talk a little bit about child rearing. I'm not a parent, so I don't have any of that input to give, but it's an important subject that there seems to be some division on, and well, I make videos and put them on YouTube, so I might as well give my 2 cents. That's all I have for you today. Those are my opinions. Take them or leave them. Have a good one.